Been hearing a lot of Merry Christmas in our house. We've been watching all kinds of Christmas movies, showing our children a lot of Christmas movies, like to show them our favorites from when we were growing up. And one of my favorites is How the Grinch Stole Christmas. I found out now every time they say, let's put on the Grinch, they put on some other Grinch. I'm like, there are like 4 different Grinch remakes out there now. And I'm like, Crystal says, why do you roll your eyes every time the Grinch comes on? Because I like the original. And why do they keep messing it up with other Grinches again and again? Here's one of my favorite parts from that original 30-minute Grinch was when the Grinch has taken all of their decorations and presents and feasts to the top of the mountain and ready to, throw them off. And what does he do? He pauses and he says, they're finding out now that no Christmas is coming. They're just waking up. I know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open a minute or two, and then every who down in Whoville will all cry, boo-hoo, right? And he says, that's a noise, cried the Grinch, that I simply must heard. So he paused, and the Grinch put his hand to his ear. I like that part, and I think it's because he's listening. He's listening to a world that I see it's going to be our world that he's listening to. Because we will cry out, and we do cry out in our world. We cry out because we've lost things that once made us happy. Maybe it's circumstances that change make us cry out, why, God, is this happening to me? Maybe it's a loss of good health. Maybe it's loss of employment or the loss of a loved one. Maybe we cry out for peace in a world that is spinning out of control. There's plenty of crying out in our world. And the one thing that stands out to me from this Christmas story differently is how real the story is and can be. It's about living in a very real world, just like ours, with powers and rulers that mandate that people go get registered. And so they up and go. A world where teenage girl is afraid for the future. A world where, if you read on in the end of Matthew, in Matthew 2, the Holy Family has to leave their home because they don't feel safe. These are stories that happen every day in our world, and it feels less and less like a Christmas TV special, right? Suddenly this Christmas story becomes real and gritty when you look at it like that. So why then would God use that story to right everything that is wrong in this world? Why would God not come to an emperor, but instead come to people who are working their hands to the bone, living day to day? Why would God not come in a city where there were the most people, but to come to the country? To do something why not in palaces? Why back roads and backyards like ours? The story doesn't look like a story of a coming of the King of Kings. Strange visitors coming, bringing even stranger gifts for this child. Shepherds, dirty from animals, coming to say, an angel told us to see this baby. And they become the first preachers of this good news that a Savior is born. Now, we just had another baby just a few months back, and now she's not royalty. Don't ask my wife that. She's not royalty. But we had way more than just bands of cloth to wrap her in. And I wouldn't let anybody touch her unless they'd wash their hands. And if you didn't know me, if I didn't know you, you weren't getting into the hospital because they have procedures about that, right? This story is so bizarre. If if I was going to write the story of salvation, if I was going to write the story of the Savior of the world, the one who would be so influential to overturn the systems and bring the long sought after peace, I would never write the story this way. A messy God who trades royal robes for strips of cloth, to descend from on high, to descend so high that it would lay this high off the ground where animals come to feed as a vulnerable infant. I would never write that story. The grand reversal, though, where the high will be made low so that all of the lowly will be lifted up. But you know what? Here's the thing. As my life has some very messy moments in it. So messy, so fact that I would think that because of that, there is no way that my story would ever intersect with God's story. Because God's God, and I'm so not God. Right? How could we ever be on the same page? But then, that's the point of the whole Christmas story, though. That we're listening with our hand up to our ear. We know that the world is crying out. And God entered into that messy world to be incarnate, meaning to take on our flesh, our blood, our life, and to ultimately to die our death on the cross so that our stories could meet. To die our death so that you would know that you matter. That there is space for you in this world. And for anyone who's searching for room in the inn for your own self. A place so that you would know there's a place where you could rest, be who you are. To know that no matter your life, you are loved. And God is with you in this life. Not only in the things that give us joy, but also in the things that make us cry out. God is there. A couple weeks ago, they were getting ready for the Christmas pageant here, and one of my sons, he's one of those ones who sings it out really loud, and he was yelling it out, and the teacher was like, maybe you just tone it down a little. And she was like, and he said, no, how would they hear me? And teacher said, just do it, it's fine, you're fine, right? Our chaotic world has every reason tonight to cry out in pain and distress. You can fill in the blank. But when you will put your hand to your ear and listen tonight, you will hear what that Grinch heard. You will hear singing. You will, because we sing out defiant songs of faith. Because if we don't sing it out, how will the world hear us? So tonight we choose to sing out defiant songs of peace on earth and goodwill to all. We choose to sing about a silent and holy night that was just a lot like this one, where we find new life in a child, a Savior, and in bread and wine as body and blood at this table. So we sing out so the world will know. Thanks be to God.